times, you know, when it comes to what we have to do moving forward, it's definitely starting local. So all those local races and everything like that, those are so important. But anyway, what I'm here tonight is to talk to you about January 6th. I'm a former political prisoner. I spent some time in the DC Gulag. And I'm going to go through some things today that'll give you a little bit more insight on what happened that day, so you can better talk about it to other people. And it's definitely going to wake you up to some of the things that happened that you weren't able to see or understand before. So let's get started here.
All the things that make me mad about those other guys, and all the things they do wrong, the one thing that I will not forgive them for is they're trying to steal the joy from this country. Hold up. Wait a minute. Saturday night.
Trump's iconic dance moves are sweeping the internet and winning him a lot of fans across the globe. Trump's dance moves were on show throughout and even after his election campaign. And it seems like everyone wants to hop on the bandwagon.
That song was so important, I'll tell you. And that was the song that was playing as I walked out of the halfway house after he gave me a part, and I'll show you some stuff about that in a minute. Man, I'm telling you, that song was so good. I loved it. We'd watch it on the prison TV. Okay. So let's get started. How many people here were there or were thinking about being there? Look around the hands that are up. Look at that. That is the most that I've seen in one setting. So congratulations. January 6th wasn't a day; it was a time period, and that time period basically started in 2015 when a super important thing happened, and that was when Trump came down the golden escalator. And that's basically when January 6th started, because that's when all the propaganda started turning against him. So we're going to go through some stories that happened between then and that time, and then January 6th, and some of them a little bit even more recently. And it's going to give you an idea of things that happened that we went through that you've probably forgotten. They were absolutely massive, and it just goes to show the gaslighting that we were subject to over the years. And following that, I'm going to ask you a simple question that's really going to kind of answer itself. So first off, we were told that Trump was a Russian puppet, and now we're even hearing more information. Even today, all this stuff is popping out about how the Crossfire Hurricane was a setup, and hopefully we have some accountability, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But that was a absolute major lie, and here it is, 10 years later, and we are still discovering. Actually, we know. The rest of the world is finally finding out.
Catching up. They're catching
Okay, we were told that Trump didn't quid pro quo with Ukraine. Remember the perfect phone call?
Yeah.
No? Did not happen, okay? We were told that Trump called some Nazi supremacists and white supremacists some very fine people. Remember that?
Yep.
The Charlottesville hoax. Now, that hoax was perpetrated even more recently. It was the reason Biden got into the race. That's exactly what he said. The reason he got in the race was because of the Charlottesville hoax. And then Obama repeated that same lie at the most recent Democratic National Convention in 24. Same thing, repeated the very same lie. So they just keep going and going and going. Okay? We were told that Jussie Smollett was attacked by MAGA. That Chicago was MAGA in the middle of a polar vortex at 2 in the morning. Okay, and then the brothers came forward and said, no, he actually bought us all the stuff, it was all a setup. And I think recently, he finally got all of his charges just dismissed.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, exactly. We were told that Trump cleared Lafayette Square of the protesters in order to get that photograph, remember that?
Yes.
Okay, and that was a lie again. The park police came out and said, no, that's not what happened. We were told that Trump didn't care about Russian bounties that were posted on our troops. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes, he did.
That was a lie. We were told that COVID was of natural origin. Yeah, and that was a worldwide hoax there.
Yeah.
Okay? Nope, not at all. We were told that social distancing was based on science. Of course it is. The science that they thought about is like, kind of makes sense. No, not at all. We were told that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin would kill you, and it's not going to help you. Exactly, right? And does everyone know why they went after it? The real reason they went after it is because in order to introduce the COVID vax, there could not be anything on the market that was already there. So they had to get the emergency use authorization.
Right.
So if hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin worked, they couldn't have rolled out the COVID vax.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. We were told, that also if you got the vax, you would spread it and you wouldn't get it. Wow. We were told the laptop from hell was fake. No. We were told that this is a little bit later, but we were told inflation was transitory. How often did they tell us that? It was Putin's inflation or Putin's gas prices. Remember all that crap? It's unbelievable. We were told that big tech was not colluding with the government. Of course it was. It still is, right? We were told that Biden does not have dementia. He runs circles around everyone for 4 years. We saw it all during the campaign,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We were told that there was no election interference. And you guys, a lot of people didn't really read it, but there was a story in Time magazine that came out shortly after the election. It was called
Yes.
the
Fortification.
fortification of the elections, fortified in Joe Biden's favor.
Yeah.
They laid it out, the whole complete admission.
They did.
And then this is something was new. Kash Patel found a bunch of fake ballots and stuff like that, but that's, we're told the border was closed. Border's closed. How many times did you see that guy's smug face on the television, just going, the border's closed, we're doing everything we can, it's absolutely perfect, and oh my gosh, unbelievable. Yes.
Oh, KJP.
Yeah. I'm surprised she doesn't have her spot on The View yet.
She's not on them anymore.
We were told that the BLM riots were mostly peaceful, right?
Yeah.
And they're still lying because what happened on the No Kings protests up in Los Angeles? They did almost $30 million worth of damage up there. That was 25 times more than happened at the U.S. Capitol.
Wow.
I don't know how much those cars cost, but those are the Waymo cars. I mean, they got to cost a couple $100,000, if not $1 million a piece, and they torched 5 of them that we know of, right? So all those stories, and those are just some of them. The magnitude of those stories were absolutely massive, and they were complete and total lies. So if those were lies, what's the likelihood that what you've been told about January 6th is also a lie? 100%, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how can they do this? How can they lie to us like that? Well, it was in 2012, the Defense Authorization Act. There's a Smith-Munn component of that. And that's the part that determines whether or not they can use propaganda on citizens.
It's
And
legalized.
so they changed that. Obama changed that. And rather than, all countries produce propaganda, and all of them do it to each other and to one another. But this actually gives them a get out of jail free card for doing it. And so it was Obama that did it. And if you recall, it was like right around the time Trump started getting in office. That's when it really went turbocharged. Shape the narratives. Okay, so who am I? Well, I was born here in Southern California, in Long Beach, and around 1980, my parents decided that Southern California was not the place to raise kids, so we moved up to Northern Idaho, and I stayed up there till I graduated high school, and I moved back down here 8 years later because I could not handle winter, so I'm not a winter kid. I like my California, I like my weather here. I have my bachelor's of science and business administration, and I'm also hold a commercial pilot's license, and I did some flight training in the past, but that got revoked because I couldn't renew it while I was in jail, and so that's a miss. Over time, I've been employed at certain companies. I'm kind of an entrepreneur at heart, so I do a little bit of stuff on my own, and then work with other companies too. I wasn't necessarily politically, I would say political, until Trump came down the golden escalator. And the reason is because until then, every politician was just the same. They were just another photocopy, recopy, retread. When Trump came down the escalator, that guy's different. something about him that is not owned by all the people, or not all the people, but all the lobbyists, I should say. That's going to make a change. And so I was arrested on August 26th, so that was over 200 days after January 6th, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about that. I served 3.5 years in federal custody, 36 months behind bars, and 4 months on home confinement, and about 20 days in a halfway house, which I was pardoned. And hopefully, I'm in the process, but it's sitting on my judge's docket list. It's been there for about 4 months now. Hopefully going to be able to get my indictment dismissed, and that kind of, I call that serve pro, like it never happened kind of thing. But the internet exists, so it's never not going to ever have happened. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. That's my part right there. Presidential pardon, pretty cool. Now this is when Trump signed it, and this video is amazing, and I love it at the very end. And I'll put the microphone up there. But basically, what he says at the end is really shows how concerned and considerate he was about things. You can hear the Sharpie scratching it.
Yeah.
Hope they come out tonight.
And the order does require the Bureau of Prisons to act immediately on receipt of the pardons and commutation orders. Sir, this is
Get that down so they can get them going right now.
Yes, sir.
See that? He's like, okay, wait, we're signing a lot of executive orders. Let's get this one down and get it moving. So that was signed, and 4.5, almost 5 hours later, I was walking out of that halfway house. Okay, so let's talk about a couple things here. So yeah, I know there are people out there who hate me because I'm a January 6th, and they hate us in general, but we're conservatives, and that's just part of it. There's sometimes some of these events I do them around Orange County. Sometimes we have protesters. Sometimes they're banging on the windows and going nuts. It's a mental illness. There was a lot of chaos and confusion that day at the Capitol, and you're going to see some video that you have not seen before, I promise you, and it's going to show you what really happened. Because basically, the police weaponized what they had against us in order to get incitement. What they were looking for was incitement, and there's reasons for that because the electoral count was supposed to be coming up. And that incitement was what they used to then turn against us later on. I was involved in that. I was right up front on the west side of the Capitol, up in the upper deck. And so that's basically how I got identified, along with mobile data that Verizon turned over. But I'm kind of tall, so I got on everyone's camera and video, so they got a good facial of me wherever I was around the area. And I was arrested, convicted, and tried. So I did not take a plea deal. I went all the way through the system. When I hear people say, oh, in fact, I just had someone send me something today. It's like I'm a traitor, and they hope that I lose my job, my car, my house, and my life, and stuff like that, as if I didn't already lose most of that, right? So when I hear them say that, it's like, hey, I've served my time. You think I should serve my time? Well, I did. Whether you do or not, I did. I served my time already. But what happened on the left was completely different. Completely different. And so I've been pursued by the full weight of the federal government, and basically, although there was lots of us that went through the process, we were still kind of on our own. It was very difficult to find any lawyer that wanted to stand up and take our cases, and of course, they took us all to DC to try us. I should have been tried here, but they didn't. They illegally extradited me to Washington, DC in order to try me there. So what was January 6th? As I mentioned, it wasn't just a day, right? Well, let's talk about it being, what is specifically that day about? That day is about the electoral count. So that's the day where they go up and they do, by the way, it's ceremonial. And some people got charged with interrupting an official proceeding, which was the 1512, which it's not an official proceeding, it's ceremonial. But nonetheless, that got overturned, and so those charges got dropped. But basically, it's the day the electoral votes get counted. And so why were we there? What was our hope for that day? Well, basically, we were going to give Mike Pence courage. And I hate saying giving a politician courage, because that's bullcrap. They should have it, or they should get out.
Yes.
Okay? But to give him the courage to say, hey, wait a minute. we're here counting the votes, and we have some states that are out there that since they've submitted their electors, they've found issues with them. And so they would like to have a little bit more time for investigation. So we weren't there to overturn the election. We weren't there to stop it. We were there to help Mike Pence say, hey, there's a lot of things going on. We have some states that are going to make objections, and we need 10 days. We're going to do a timeout, and we're going to take 10 days, and we're going to have official congressional investigation and take a look at some of these things and see if there's any validity to them. And if so, then we'll go from there, right? So it was just a pause to make sure, but they couldn't have that because in order for that to take place, it would then require that the states that objected raise their hand, as long as there's a representative and a senator that say, yeah, we believe that there's issues with the vote, we have issues. Then the Congress breaks out, Senate goes one way, the House goes the other, and they debate those issues for that state for 2 hours each. So that's 4 hours per state, and there was at least 6 states that were going to object. And therefore that makes 24 hours worth of election meddling and fraud. How are they gonna put that on national worldwide television? They can't have that. So they had to shut it down. And the way to do that is to either one, get something to happen on the Capitol grounds, or two, B, in my opinion, which is the backup plan, which is the bombs that were planted outside the RNC and the DNC that were actually used as a predicate to evacuate the Capitol so that they could then not do the count. And they did what they do later on at like 2 or 3 in the morning. They all came back in, slunk in the back door and passed it and voted through it, and it was done the following day. Okay, so that's what January 6th is in one sentence, by the way. But what was it to the left? Well, it was to submit Trump and destroy him completely. Trump and the MAGA movement and us in particular. And so that's how they used it, and that's what they did, and it was an extremely effective campaign. I'll tell you what, the one thing the left is good, they are good at organizing, and they are good at trying to pull things over on people. They do it all the time, and unfortunately, they have the legacy media that backs them up to make it happen. Okay, so political violence, that's what they say it was. It was political violence. There's no acceptable political violence. Well, political violence, in my opinion, is what they have done to this country to destroy us and take us apart with all the Marxism. That is real political violence. They say, oh yeah, well, we can do it without a bullet. Isn't that what the communists say? We can take over without firing a shot. Well, that is actually the violence that they're doing by dividing us, whether it's vax or no vax, or mask or no mask, or open border, closed border. All of that is divide and conquer. That's how they do it. They separate all of us. And it's great to see you guys come together here, especially when you guys did at a very difficult time. And it's good to see that you're still moving forward, and it's a great organization, and we need to have these grassroots more and more all over the place, without a doubt. One of the things you have to remember that the left does is they are projectionists. So whatever they say it is that we're doing, that is exactly what it is that they're doing, okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go over, we already talked about that when January 6th started. We're going to talk about the days leading up to January 6th, and that is between Election Day until the 6th, and then on that day what happened, and then some of the major lies, and then what happened after January 6th, and then what I think is going to happen and how the narrative is going to kind of move along. So we already talked about the Russiagate, Crossfire Hurricane, but then the Mueller report. Remember when the Mueller report came out, and it basically, what did they do? They left it hanging there rather than give a definitive answer. It's like, well, you know, we don't know if anything could be prosecuted, leaving the door open. Again, that's what they're trying to do, to continue to divide. And then also how they used the FISA courts, was the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, to use that to spy on Trump. And how did they do that? They had some ambassador in New Zealand or Australia drop something on Papadopoulos and blah, blah, blah. It just jumped around. But they did all that intentionally fake, lied to the FISA courts, and the FISA court even knew about it, which we recently learned. Then, of course, going through the impeachment process, that was something that, you know, we saw during moments before COVID, and actually in the first waning days of COVID, and then even afterwards. So isn't it interesting that President Trump got impeached after He was out of office. So that still leaves, and that they're talking now, that also leaves the door open for that to occur to Obama. But we'll see where that goes.
Interesting.
And then this one is one that got you guys going too, for sure, right here. The COVID lockdowns and mandates. And that was just something that all conservatives just, you knew who was who. You could look, you could see, you just knew it. I actually, you know what I did? I went and I ordered off of Amazon one of those medical alert bracelets that you could have inscribed. You could type what you wanted inscribed on it. And I said, I have Americans with Disabilities mask exemption. Everyone ever heard of that? I made it up. And then when I walked into a store and they chased me down the aisle, sir, come back here. I would say, oh, no, I have an exemption. And they'd look at it and they go, oh, and then they walk away. See, the robots, they don't think. All they need to do is check the box. They just need to check the box and move on, right?
They said so many arguments across it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, the Summer of Love riots, we're going to get into more, compare and contrast that. Biden is the dementia candidate. And then the unconstitutional law changes. Okay, so in order for election laws to be changed, they have to be done by the legislatures. That's according to the Constitution for the methods and means of elections. And so what we saw, especially in areas like Pennsylvania, we saw the Pennsylvania Supreme Court make changes. They can't do that. We saw governors make changes. They can't do that. Whether it be some of the drop boxes or the, first off, they were going to count ballots for 5 days after election. Like, who does that? And then they're going to count them 7 to 10 days later. They just made these changes up on the fly. That in itself, period, stop, full stop, is election fraud. So regardless of whether you want to talk about the machines or whatever else you want to talk about, that in itself proves that the 2020 election was a fraud. Okay? And then, of course, the laptop from hell, and the 51 intel agents that lied about it and then gave that letter so that Biden could show that at the presidential debate, saying everything he's saying is a total lie, knowing full well that it wasn't. Unbelievable. Okay, so let's do a quick dive into the difference between BLM and J-6th. The Summer of Love riots had 36 times more officers injured, 19 times more arrests, and 740 times more costly. Okay, the DOJ pursued us. In fact, Merrick Garland got on the television and said, this is the largest manhunt in the history of the Department of Justice. That's what it was, the largest manhunt in the history of the Department of Justice. And what, did they start anything about that for the BLM?
No.
Not a chance.
Ticket release.
Yep, exactly. So we were run down terribly. Of the J6ers who were arrested, we were denied pre-trial release. That's a violation of the Bail Reform Act. And so how could they do that? Because if there's any condition whatsoever that a person could be out on bond or bail, they should be. Now, when I was arrested, I was 54 years old, never had a criminal record. And so I got arrested here, and then I was able to get bond quickly, for 10 days, and it got revoked, and I was put back in. But I was one of the few that was able to do that. Mostly once they got you, they just took you in. It happened to be a judge here, let me out, which was pretty cool, but didn't last long. When it came to the Summer of Love, yeah, there were arrests, but they were either released that evening or the following morning, okay? And there was actually, there was bail funds that was set up. One of them was even promoted by Harris, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, to bail all those out, okay? And the biggest difference between Summer of Love and J6 is that all of their charges were dropped and none of our charges were dropped. And there was a 100% conviction rate for January 6th. 100%. Yeah, and so we're going to take a look at something here. When they talk about domestic terrorism, because I am now considered a violent domestic extremist, a VDE, and I had that label all the way through the whole system, so I was treated differently, and which is what they try to use in order to keep me in, as opposed to getting released on bond. But when it comes to violent domestic terrorism that they do, let's listen to what they think about it.
They're taking to the streets. the parking lots. Tonight, the FBI and ATF are investigating multiple cases of possible arson, targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism, huh?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
How they look at it?
Yeah.
Look at how they frame it in the media.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this pitch is kind of small for some in the back, but anyone recognize this area? Of course you recognize it. And the time? That was President Trump's first inauguration in 2017, and that was the night. And so you can see the fires that were happening around the area and the smoke that's coming up. Now there were rioters that burned cars and destroyed stores and ruined businesses. They did get arrested, but they were released the following morning. And then the ACLU came in a case later on and got them paid millions. No kidding. Because their civil rights were violated by being arrested. Okay, so here's a compare and contrast heads up. So on the left here, we have the Summer of Love BLM riots, and on the right side, we have January 6th. So I'll go through some of these here. So BLM lasted 7 months, 20 murders, hundreds of businesses destroyed, 150 federal buildings damaged. And they say, oh, well, the Summer of Love was different because it wasn't on federal grounds, so you can't compare it to what you guys did. And there's proof that it was actually federal grounds. Yes, it was. They did $2 billion with a B in damages. Over 2,000 officers were injured. Protesters were bailed out. They were encouraged by the media and politicians.
Yes, they were.
Over 2,300 incidents of looting, over 600 of arson, almost 100 cop cars were destroyed with Molotov cocktails, bricks, frozen water, canned food, fireworks, and lasers. Do you know how many of these items that they found in January 6th?
None.
Zero. None. Because we weren't there
That's
to cause that.
That's right.
Over on the other side, January 6th lasted a few hours. No murders by protesters. It was only protesters that were killed.
That's right.
No small businesses were destroyed. One federal building was damaged with $1.5 million worth of damage. Now, that got paid because they divided it up among 300 of us and we had to pay it.
Wow.
It got paid.
Wow.
Yep.
You paid restitution.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And there were, they originally said that there was 140 officers injured, but the true answer is only 56. Now, I'm not saying any officers injured is right, but they lie about that too. And the injuries that these officers had was nothing like the ones that they had over here. Protesters, such as myself, were kept in solitary confinement, and we were condemned by the media, and everything was exaggerated by the mainstream media.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Oh, this talks about the riots up in LA on the King's Day, on the No Kings protest. So this was on June 7th, and the estimate already then was at almost $20 million. Okay, and the whole Capitol, with their bookkeeping and their estimators saying it was $1.2 million. So you know it was probably about 300,000, really, right? Okay. So now, let's talk about what happened between Election Day and January 6th. What are the things, now, when I went to cast my ballot on Election Day for 2020, I was not what they would now call an election denier, okay? I knew that in California, it doesn't really count necessarily too much on national votes, but nonetheless, I was there to support my duty and do everything like that. But when the Hunter Biden laptop story broke as we're leading up to the election, I got a little like, that's kind of weird that the suppression levels that came out and how they were so convinced, oh, this is so fake, and trying to shut it down everywhere. That made me go, you know what, there's something kind of weird going on, but let's see what happens. And then election day occurred, and then it was election night when I go, there's something up, and that's when they stopped the vote count. Anyone ever remember that happening?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone ever remember?
Never before.
Never before. It didn't happen.
They counted through the night.
And what did they say? Oh, they're tired and they gotta go home.
The water pipe busted.
There's a water making break,
Yep,
and it was a urinal that was on another floor on the other side of the building. And so that at that point I go, wow, they are actually doing it. Like we're watching this happen live, right? This is happening.
Exactly.
And then, if you remember, Trump came out late that evening and he didn't give he should declare victory, but he didn't. But he said, I hope that they won't come up with a bunch of votes in the middle of the night and things change. And that is exactly what happened. He knew it was going to happen. He really did. And then there was, you guys remember Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell traveling around the country, and what did they do? They went to the legislatures to say, hey, look, here's witnesses, here's all these affidavits, here's a video. And then once we saw the video of them pulling those cases out underneath from the tables, I thought, done deal. This is going to get wrapped up. It's so obvious now, right? Isn't that amazing what they got away with?
They own the media. They own the media.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they went around, and of course, none of the Democrats showed up to those presentations, and of course, the media was nowhere to be found. So you really had to look for it. So I was trying to educate myself with as many resources as I could, because I want to know if this is really being stolen. I want to know. I want to have my facts in order. I don't want to be shooting from the hip here and be uncertain. And then the censorship and the gaslighting continued on and on. And then we started to see the election laws changing, as I mentioned. Like Pennsylvania said, well, we're going to continue counting ballots, and we're going to continue counting ones even if they don't have postmarks, or even if the signatures aren't right. And then in Nevada, we heard stories about how they turned off the signature verifications altogether. And all these things were just changing the laws and just making it more and more obvious. Everyone remembers Zuckerbucks, right? Going to all those $420 million, and I think I saw somewhere between 12 and 15 million had anything to do with Republican districts. It was a complete one-sided show there. The mail-out ballots, of course, here, I don't really remember the mail-out ballots before at all here, but man, after 2018, and we saw that 2018 is when we saw the ballot harvesting. Like Republicans won Orange County, and then 5 days later it's like Democrats won it all, right?
Right.
Okay. So all those things started to add up, and the drop boxes where we saw video of these guys pulling up in cars, going into a drop box. They have the key to the drop box, and they shove stuff in their backpack, and then there's no form that they're signing on the door saying that they've been there, and they just jump in their car and take off. Like, what kind of chain of custody is that? Unbelievable. Censoring the Hunter Biden laptop continued. One of the things that the left loves to say is, yeah, but all those things went to court and Trump lost.
Right.
No, it did not happen that way. None of them went. They were all denied standing. Because I say, okay, and you ask them, you ask a liberal, yeah, there was like 61 or 62. They know the number off the top of their head. I said, okay, great, show me one of them. Show me one. And they can't do that. They can't show you that. And then Chris Krebs from the cybersecurity administration said we had the most secure election in U.S. history. And once someone says that, what do you know? They're absolutely lying. It's totally hacked, of course. And then we found out too that the machines were hackable, and of course they said no, they don't even connect to the internet. There's no need for them to connect to the internet. They did. And there's one last thing, and this came afterwards actually. And if you remember, Bill Barr was Attorney General at the time, and what did Bill Barr tell us in Congress and everybody else? He said, I've done my investigation and there is nothing there. Well, a FOIA was done on his emails between Election Day and Inauguration Day, and there was no emails in his email about election fraud, theft, nothing. He did zero investigation. None.
He's also, his dad was connected with Epstein.
Epstein, yeah. It's so incestuous, it's crazy. It really is. In politics, it really is crazy in DC. They need to move everything out and spread it around the country. Okay, so let's talk about that day. So that day was a middle of winter day. It was early. I got up. I thought, okay, I'm getting up plenty of time to get out there and get to the ellipse. Well, I went to the ellipse. The ellipse was already full, and the line was already around the Washington Monument. But fortunately, the landscape that leads up to the Washington Monument is kind of sloped a little bit towards the White House. So we could stand on that, and they had some big video screens. So we stood there and we saw the entire day. It was stacked, and of course it finished up with Trump, and he did say peacefully and patriotically, and about 1:20 he closed up, and that's when the majority of the people went down to the Capitol. Now, as we get to the Capitol, people had been there since early on in the day, but typically the Capitol grounds are not restricted. And there were no signs by the time the majority of the people got there. And the signs that were there were on these, have you ever seen that plastic, looks like chain link fencing, but it's plastic orange? You know, you see it along the roads, it keeps snow drifts and stuff going on. That's what they had around the Capitol building, and about every 100 yards or so, there was a standard sized piece of paper that said restricted grounds. Well, those were all trampled down by the time most of the people got there. So there was no indication that the grounds were restricted, because one, we had Trump that said, hey, go down to the Capitol, I'm coming down there. Two, we didn't see anything that said the grounds were restricted, and normally they're not. And three, there were provocateurs there that had on like they had on the neon vests and a hat, and they had bullhorns. They were saying, come on up, the Capitol's open, come on up, we're going inside, move on up to the Capitol. And there was lots of those. So all of those things, and we're thinking, okay, well, what we're doing is we're getting closer to the Capitol building because Trump's going to maybe come do some sort of speech out there, or perhaps once they start objecting to the electors, then there's going to be some updates, and then a representative or senator will come out and address us and do that kind of stuff. So that's why everyone was moving up towards the Capitol grounds. And then it was that point that the police started to attack us once it got nice and dense up there. And they, for the first hour, they shot 40 percussion grenades, tear gas, and everything into the crowd. And you're going to see some video in just a moment that you haven't seen before. But what that resulted in is a skirmish. That's what it was. It was a skirmish. And ultimately, what they deployed against us as far as tear gas, because of the winds, happened to blow back onto them. And force them back up into the Capitol. And so I was charged with an assault, and pepper spray is a deadly weapon nowadays. But they say that I sprayed someone in the face. It was impossible to do that. There's pepper spray flying everywhere that day. Where I was, all the police officers had on those full respirator masks and everything like that, so it wasn't even possible. But because I was head and shoulders above everyone else. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take a look at this video. Now, when you watch this video, pay attention to what's going on in the background too, because it's just as important as what's happening in the foreground. This is video. It's estimated to be anywhere between, say, 15 and 45,000 hours worth of video. If you take all the body cams, you take all the cameras, add them all up for the days, blah, blah, blah. How many minutes of video of the Capitol have you guys actually seen on television? Like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, right? It's
always the same clip.
It's always the same clip. Now, if there's tens of thousands of hours, why not show more?
Yeah.
They were all restricted videos. They suppressed them all, and we couldn't even use a lot of them in our cases for particular reasons. I'll get to that in a minute. But so pay attention to what's going on in the background of the video. The video is about 7 minutes long. There's some language in it, and you'll see that the crowd was chilling out while we were getting attacked. We weren't on the building, climbing up the scaffolds and doing all that kind of stuff when they started to attack us, which is how the media likes to portray it. That, oh my gosh, they were attacking, we had to defend the Capitol. That's not the case whatsoever. And you're going to see something here that's pretty interesting. So.
Hey Jeff, do you want this? You got 7 minutes.
Oh no, I'll wait.
All right, earmuffs for those sensitive ones.
As I inched closer to the front lines, the tone started changing. I was told by a group of veterans that Capitol Police had already shot and killed an unarmed woman and given an older gentleman a heart attack by shooting flashbang grenades into the peaceful part of the crowd. While Ashley Babbitt's murder has been heavily publicized, as there was no way to hide it, few, if any, know about the 3 other protesters that were killed that day. Part of the footage that the feds didn't want released showed how overzealous certain officers were when it came to assaulting and instigating a riot.
Around 17 p.m., a second wave of D.C. Metropolitan Police officers show up on the east side of the Capitol. They are the first to bring in explosive ammunition rounds that they will soon distribute to officers on the West Plaza. Officer Tara TimĐỗ is crouched on the ground, readying CS gas rounds.
We need more fucking munitions! We're gonna keep last munitions. Let's go, we gotta get them. We need them. Let's go! Shoot it!
These are flashbangs, I think.
Yeah, look at the size of these
Robert
things. They're
Hoover gives the first
rolling them into
audible
the crowd.
authorization to deploy explosives into the crowd.
No one's on the stage there. No one's breached anything.
No one's pressing, yeah.
And it starts lobbing these things out there. It's like kids all that.
They have to press.
Shoot from an elevated point.
Up above, yeah.
They were shooting for their faces.
Like, shooting
Oh, look at
fish.
that, look at that. We got attacked.
Oh, you absolutely got it.
Those people are just standing.
Everyone's still behind the line.
No one's pressing forward.
No.
At 1:32 p.m., an officer laments that chucking grenades into the crowd is just going to make things worse.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Moments later, the same officer seems to have changed his mind and is actively searching for munitions to discharge in the crowd. After not receiving approval to use the triple chaser, Officer Thao appears to be reprimanded by another officer for his use of smoke moments earlier.
You came back.
Yeah, good.
Another captain tells Officer Thao to hold on discharging CS gas into the crowd.
Here's some bombs.
Could care less if that hits someone in the head.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything.
Yes, that's it. Yes, that's it. Keep going.
Absolutely insane.
Is that Tim Walls?
I thought his name was Fat Bastard.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to load or shoot guns, so I doubt it.
There's nobody up there really.
Oh yeah, this is early. Oh, and no one's still at the. And they're shooting right at people's faces.
Give me a fucking taser.
That's the one that came back on, I think. That one he shot one time. That's the one.
That guy
Oh.
broke it.
I was right by that. I was on that side.
And not only that, we're taking out one and then we're getting way here. We're multiplying them by hitting.
That's called a super soaker.
They're gonna beat the fuck out of that guy. The cops are beating the fuck out of that guy.
They've never thrown the concussion grenades, if they've never used the pepper spray, this wouldn't have happened. It was a peaceful protest. I was standing within 15 feet of the line of officers. They started firing at us before anybody did anything to them. We were not rushing them. There was no advance on them. They just started throwing concussion grenades and pepper spray.
Inspector General called authorities out, not only for the complete lack of preparation, but also to point out that a civil disturbance unit was ordered not to use concussion grenades on the crowd that day.
Wow.
Yeah, they pulled my flights
So
back.
out of all the video you've seen, how come you didn't get to see any of that?
Yeah, we didn't see those.
It kills their narrative.
Exactly right. Exactly. And again, this is just a fragment of it. And believe it or not, many of us were not allowed to use that in our trials either, because we weren't specifically in with, they literally only let us use video. It was almost within a 5 feet perimeter of us. So I could give you that. If you guys want, that's a QR code for that video.
Was that Mindy Robinson narrating?
Yeah, so that wasn't my video. What I did is I used some videos. One of them was the J-6th timeline, and there was a couple others that were in there that I put them together to kind of show you everything. That's a 7-minute video right there.